Hello, Star Trek fans. Welcome to ReBinge It. This is the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
We are rebinging Star Trek Voyager from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 2, Episode 11, Maneuvers. This episode aired November 20th, 1995. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about Cold Fire, which was last week's episode?
What happened in that? I have no memory.
It was another sweaty episode for Kes.
Oh, yes.
She was starting things on fire.
Yep.
Learning new powers. Being manipulated by a creepy guy.
Oh, yep. Yep. The guy from Alien Nation, I think it was. He was in.
And we had another creepy kid.
Oh, yeah.
Who was trying to kill everyone.
Wow. For an episode I liked, I forgot that one awfully quickly.
You know, the caretaker was extremely powerful, right? There was that moment where he, beamed everybody off of the ship. If she really wanted to kill everyone, she could have just beamed everybody out into space.
Maybe the problem is she doesn't have access to the technology that the caretaker had. Maybe they're not actually super powerful and they rely on their technology. And the giant array that he had was crammed with the stuff. So,
yeah.
You know, like the Squire of Gothos, all his power was from the machinery.
Oh, was it? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I only
hidden behind
saw
a
that
mirror
once.
or a painting or something.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's a good guess. And she was building that because she had a tiny one of it, but it didn't have all the powers.
And she was using the powers of the Ocampa. So she was exploiting them.
Right. Okay. I'll accept that answer.
Some additional headcanon and overanalysis in the following week. That's pretty good.
I do like it. Yeah, I do like it. Well, should we get started on maneuvers? I have a lot of notes for some reason.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I remember this episode.
No, I don't, fortunately. I don't remember anything about Chakotay except just not liking him.
I don't know if any of our listeners are aware of that.
Well, they're going to know by the end of this one if they haven't heard it before. A little spoiler. All right.
Alert. Chakotay is not one of her favorite characters.
No. Let's get started.
Okay.
In the cold open, we open with Chakotay and B'Elanna in a turbolift talking about playing hoverball, which B'Elanna was winning, but Chakotay's trying to psych her out by saying he had her right where he wanted her, and she was about to tense up. Well, none of this conversation really matters. What matters is what these two are wearing. First, B'Elanna is wearing a red sort of sweater-like tank top, which might be easy to play sports in, but it looks like the wrong material to be sweating in. But, it's the future, so who knows?
It's future materials, yeah.
Right. But over her sleeveless top, she puts on a sleeveless, I don't know, it's not exactly a jacket. I'm not sure what it is. I've never understood the point of a sleeveless jacket when you already don't have sleeves. But I will accept what she's wearing because she looks great in it. It fits. It's colorful, right? It's very nice. What I do not accept is what Chakotay is wearing. It can only be described as a burlap sack.
Look, the budget was low. They had some sacks left over from loading flour at the bakery next door. They just grabbed one and said, cut a hole in it.
Just
put it on Chakotay.
Put your badge on it. It'll look fine.
It'll be fine.
It's got one of those collars that they have used before, I think on Voyager, where it looks torn, but it isn't torn. It's actually intentional.
It's a 25th century fashion statement.
And it has sort of 3/4 length sleeves.
Yeah.
And it just hangs on him like a bag. I don't know why you would play sports in this kind of outfit. It looks really bulky. It looks really hot.
Yeah.
And what's funny to me about it is this is what fashion looked like on Star Trek in the 90s. Like, this is what, they made a conscious decision to make normal sort of outside of work casual wear look like this. And it is so terrible.
I think, however, you need to give Chakotay a break. He was brain dead a few weeks ago. This was what looks good to him. Yeah,
maybe that's the problem. This is the literal reason why when we were watching Picard, with every episode, I was like, the clothes are so awesome in this show. Because they took a completely different tactic on the non-Starfleet clothes on Picard.
it is a funny contrast when you look at the styles that were in Star Trek. Voyager leads on from TNG, I would say,
Yes.
more than Deep Space Nine. But the fashion styles are really odd. And I'm wondering how much of this is honestly budget? Where they're like, look, we've got 26 episodes to make. We're not going to spend a huge amount of money doing intricate costumes that are going to be on screen for 1 or 2 scenes. Throw something together. What they're aiming at is quick costumes that they can put on, make it seem a little bit different from today, rather than a really planned movie-style costume. And I'd say that's one of the production values that very much comes in with the modern Trek, is the uniforms and the outfits are amazing. It's not sticking a piece of tinfoil to somebody's pants.
Like they did, I swear, in one episode of Deep Space Nine. And maybe we can think about it like this was television in the 90s.
26 episodes.
Pretty much small screens.
Yep.
So even, budget may have played into it, but it may also just have been the visuals.
Yep.
Because you couldn't really see things in great detail like you can now. Now everything's in super high def and, you can see really clearly right down to the seams of what people are wearing.
Right,
and you couldn't then. And maybe that's part of the reason.
Yeah.
I think another reason might be they didn't want to get stuck in any kind of fashion trend that was specific to the time.
Yep.
Maybe that's it too. I don't know. That's maybe a little bit more forward thinking, because were they really thinking, Star Trek's going to be around for another 50 years?
Right.
Who knows? But it to me is just so funny that they falter onto the side of burlap sack, especially when B'Elanna looked great. I don't know what they were doing with this sack. And many times we've talked about when they go to planets, why do all the people there look like they're dressed like peasants in a Broadway play or something, or not an off-Broadway play?
I know I've mentioned this before, but I think Stargate SG-1 was probably the best at everybody in the universe dressed like medieval peasants, outside of a few worlds where they were technically advanced, but everyone else peasants.
If you're going to talk about budget, maybe it's not just so much the style of the clothing, but it could be the fitting of it. Yeah. Because one of the things that's great about the Picard outfits is how well fitted everything is. Yeah. And you can make even a bad outfit look good if it fits perfectly and it's tailored perfectly. But it's this sort of flowing, hanging things that end up looking ridiculous.
Well, I wonder also if there's an element of the shooting schedule. I know the actors have talked about this, of how intense the shooting schedules were and how much stuff they would have to do in the day, and they were shooting out of sequence and they worked constantly. So I wonder if that comes into play here, of you don't have the time. There's a cadence and a pace that's involved. So you don't have the time for wardrobe to put you in a new outfit and make sure it looks perfect for the scene. It's like, throw this on. We've got 8 more scenes to shoot today.
No, I watch soap operas, which is going to come up in this episode a lot. Yeah. And that's just, they weren't throwing burlap bags on people.
Yeah, that's true. The soap operas is a different league, and a lot of those people looked amazing.
I'm sure it's a combination of all the things that we've talked about.
Yeah.
But how we have to accept it as it's just part of the charm of Star Trek.
It's not something I complain about. I like the costumes when they're good. I laugh when they're bad. But it's part of Star Trek.
We just get on with the episode, Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, don't let that distract you from the quality of the episode or the show. It's kind of like Doctor Who. At times with Doctor Who will have amazing things on it, and then it will have...
We'll have a plunger coming out of a Dalek. A Dalek.
Exactly. It's the same kind of thing. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for the Star Trek fashion episode of ReBinge It.
It's just funny.
So, we're not even at 2 minutes, and I think we spent 15 minutes talking about costumes.
Well, I did take a lot of notes about that, so I think that's okay. That's all right. It also doesn't help in this scene that Chakotay is such a smug ass that it just makes me not like him even more. I'm not sure I buy that B'Elanna would spend so much time with him. He's just rude. Anyway. They eventually arrive at the bridge, and Tuvok announces that they're picking up a signal from some kind of beacon, and it appears to be of a Federation origin. So everybody's excited. We cue the theme song.
That was an incredibly to-the-point opening. It was like, boom, we found a probe, into the credits.
I like it. After the theme, Tom is wondering if maybe Starfleet got some kind of a probe into the Delta Quadrant. He says maybe they're looking for us. Janeway tries to keep everyone from getting too excited. because maybe she's learned her lesson on this. And Tuvok says the security codes appear legit, so Janeway's like, let's go find it. No thought whatsoever to maybe it's actually a little bit suspicious.
Yes, knowing that there's a Cardassian spy out there with access, who's had access to Marquis Federation technology for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I'm going to bring that up in a second. Off we go into a purple cloud where the beacon appears to have drifted into an ionized hydrogen cloud.
Yep.
Ions are always trouble, as Star Trek watchers know, so of course the sensors don't work.
Any kind of cloud is bad news in Trek.
Especially in Voyager. Harry asks if they should just beam the beacon on board, but Chakotay urges caution and Janeway agrees for a change.
Wow, it's not a change. I mean, in Deep Space Nine, straight into ops. Beam it straight into ops.
Season 1, they were beaming everything right into ops. Yeah. That's how they got the virus on board. All kinds of crap happened.
Yeah, and Chakotay is the voice of reason.
Well, they try a tractor beam instead, but they immediately start getting fired upon, and Janeway calls for battle stations as a Kazon raider comes out of the cloud firing. They can't escape and end up in a battle which goes badly as a small opening starts forming in their shields. Chakotay tries to rotate the shield harmonics, but they're able to continuously match their weapon's frequency to the changing shield frequency. And Janeway's like, how the hell can they do that?
Yeah, that's something the Kazon haven't seemed to be able to do before.
Well, yeah, but come on, people. I mean, at this point, how do we all not know it's Seska? It's ridiculous. Because Chakotay says something like, oh, it's like they know our command codes. Well, everybody watching knows.
No. It seems strange that nobody would have thought of that one to this point.
Yeah, especially since they know she went with the Kazon.
Yeah, specifically, yes.
Yeah. A small craft heads into the shield opening and rams into Voyager. They send Tuvok and security to the cargo bay as there's an intruder alert. And we find some Kazons jumping out of the crashed ship.
Oh my, come on, Tuvok. There's armed Kazon boarding your ship.
Yeah.
And Tuvok walks into the bay and says, put down your weapons.
Yeah, with two guys.
Yeah.
He doesn't put it up any sort of force field. They don't even lock the doors of the cargo bay.
Cordon the cargo bay, set up defensive positions in the corridors.
Yeah.
You're dealing with the Kazon, who by now I think you should have been briefed, are literally suicidally brave. They rush in where angels dare, and you walk in and you say, give yourselves up, guys.
No, it was...
Behave or there'll be trouble.
It was crazy.
Yes, go in shooting, but I guess that's the point. That isn't the Star Trek way. Maybe we can talk to them.
It's not the Star Trek way to go in shooting, but they could have locked the doors because a couple of them just run out of the door into the ship, and there's nobody from security standing out in the hallway?
Okay, I have some headcanon on this. I was going to be annoyed about that are their procedures all garbage? Seska knows what the procedures are. She has a good understanding of the ship, so she'll know that they won't go in phases firing, that they'll do the Federation Starfleet thing of trying to get them to surrender. So she knows that. There's an advantage. And then the second thing is she may have equipped them, although we don't learn this in the show, with some kind of override devices to override doors, override security,
yeah, we
mask
definitely
their signal.
Did not see that. Yeah.
We know she gave the Kazon the ability to kind of hide from Voyager scans in the past. She may have given them technology to be able to do that. They don't call it out, but she's pretty resourceful.
All right, I'll allow it.
It does annoy me that they didn't just go in shooting.
Yeah, agreed. Or have more people.
If it'd been Cisco...
Straight power play.
Yeah, it would have been straight power play. Nobody's getting out of there alive. Because I think Cisco understands the concept, delivered by the late, great Eli Wallach. When you've got to shoot, don't talk.
Well, Cisco is in a different situation on that station in that it wasn't a Starfleet ship. He didn't have complete control over who was on there. So I think he might have had to look at things a little bit differently and more aggressively. But in general, straight power play.
Well, plus, I guess you're right, because Kira did like shooting things.
She did. Chakotay notices now that there's something going on in Transporter Room 2, so Tuvok runs there, just on his own, by the way. And we find two Kazon grabbing something from the wall and beaming away. Tuvok gets there in time to see that they've left and taken a transporter module with them.
Okay, what happened to Baxter? Wasn't he a security guy looking for his team?
Where is Baxter?
Yeah.
He's in the gym, remember?
Oh, right, he's working out, yeah.
Janeway proposes a tractor beam now because she doesn't want to let them leave with that module. They get a tractor beam attached, and then the Kazon ship calls. And it's the guy, I think, who came onto Voyager when they had the injured Kazon,
Yes.
and then they just killed him, and then they left.
Yep, Kullock.
I don't know why I don't remember his name. I just called him Kazon number 1 in my notes. Anyway, Janeway tells him that the transporter module they stole will only work on Voyager, but the Kazon said he's had some help updating their technology.
Yep.
And then Seska dramatically steps into the picture.
Hello, everybody.
Looking more like a Cardassian now. She leans into the camera and she says, "Hello, Chakotay." Just like that. It's very funny. And he's like, "I should have known." And she says, "Yeah, you should have. You're so predictable. I knew you'd try to stop us with a tractor beam." She presses some buttons and creates a feedback loop, causing the tractor beam to drop and the Kazon warp away. Chakotay looks annoyed.
Oh,
and
dear.
he should be, because how are you not expecting this?
Well, I love the way she says, "Goodbye, Chakotay."
She's so, I don't know what it is about her line delivery in that scene, but it's very funny. I think this was the first scene where I really laughed.
That was a good dramatic opening for Seska reappearing, and I like the way she has the Cardassian look back.
Yeah, she's got the spoon head back, yeah.
Yeah. We have to talk about a few things here.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I think we have to talk about how the Federation evasion pattern, and I can't remember which number it was.
It was Omega something.
Yeah, basically that involves just flying straight and letting them shoot at you constantly.
Doesn't it always? Have we ever actually seen? I mean, yeah, we probably have, but usually we don't see a lot of really complicated maneuvers.
Yeah, well, they were expensive effects, but we did see them with the Defiant. But with this one, it's like you carry on flying straight towards the other ship without returning fire while it just keeps on shooting at you.
But typically when the captain calls for that, we don't even go outside and see what happens. We usually just stay in the bridge. So, yeah, but that was funny. It did look like our maneuver is we just go straight.
Yeah, we fly straight. Maybe this is why the Federation did so badly in the Dominion War. This was their standard technique.
Maybe.
We can't understand. We use evasive techniques of just flying straight at them.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom, the greatest pilot, and he can't, turn the ship upside down, which we saw them do when there was that lovesick space amoeba, and they inverted the ship.
Yeah. I think we're to believe there was some damage, though.
Well, it just seemed a little contrived.
I agree.
That they made this. And plus, when they got the hole in the shield, so that ship's heading for the hole in the shield. They know it's heading for the hole in the shield. They know they have a hole in the shield.
And they don't even shoot it.
And they don't even it means you've got a complete choke point. It's got to go through that hole. I know you only have 52, or was it 57 photon torpedoes, but how about stuffing one through that hole at the ship that's incoming? Or even firing the phasers?
Yeah. I appreciate what they were trying to do, which is to show that Seska knows just enough.
Yes.
That she knows some things she can exploit. And she also knows the people well enough that she knows how they'll react.
Yeah.
And they talk in previous episodes and in this one that she's got some really unique skills.
Right.
Because those things were probably honed as a Cardassian. And then, she really made use of them when she joined the Maquis. So I think they're really just trying to tell us she's really dangerous because she can exploit even the smallest thing.
Right. Yeah.
And they certainly showed that.
That part, yes, I'd agree with. But I thought the whole space battle part was just really badly contrived writing of there's a level of dumb. And when you cross that level, it just becomes, oh, really?
Okay. All right.
And that's what I felt was happening there. They wanted to get to an end point, and they used the weakest way of getting there.
I mean, we're into season 2, but maybe we have to accept, I don't know if this was intentional, but maybe we have to accept that this is a depleted crew who weren't necessarily trained for the mission they're on. They have a lot of junior officers. Some of their more seasoned people were killed.
Yep, that's true.
So they're actually not good at this.
Interesting point. But their tactical officer isn't inexperienced. They have an experienced
and not their
captain.
first officer either. Yeah. But everybody else is. But I agree with you. That seemed a little silly. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it frequently is in these battles. How many times do they put the shields up, but then they do something that would require the shields to be down and they just sort of gloss over it? Stuff like that
Wavy
I think
hand.
is pretty common. Yeah. A little hand wavy.
But I did like the concept. I think you could have just tried harder at it.
Agreed. Now in the cargo bay, B'Elanna is climbing around the crashed Kazon vessel, saying that the bow was specifically modified to puncture Voyager's hull.
Yeah.
Neelix is shocked. He says he's never seen the Kazon do something like this. Tuvok points out they now have an advisor with Cardassian, Maquis, and Federation experience.
That's not a good thing for the Kazon to have.
Neelix advises caution, wondering if going after the Kazon is wise, but Janeway, ever the Starfleet captain, says it is an unacceptable situation for the Kazon Nistrim to have Federation technology.
Yeah.
It could alter the balance of power in the quadrant, and she won't have it. Chakotay thinks Seska wants them to pursue her because she masterminded a precision raid but left a warp trail for them to follow. It's obviously a trap.
Yeah. Seems a little bit too convenient, yes.
Yeah, Chakotay proposes that we use some unconventional tactics, but he doesn't actually give any detail here, so it's sort of a clue that something's coming.
Yeah.
Tuvok very sneakily proposes maybe Commander Chakotay could use his intimate knowledge of Seska to manipulate her in the way she manipulated us. I thought he was going to say manipulated you, Chakotay.
Yeah.
Chakotay gives him a really dirty look, and Janeway does have a bit of a burn on her face.
Hey, that was a great dig there. I laughed out loud at that. That was like, that is that Vulcan thing of, I'm not being emotional, but I'm still making a real dig.
Oh, I completely agree. I laughed out loud, and I put in my notes, if I didn't know better, I'd say Tuvok enjoyed that dig. Yes, we had the exact same thought.
On a positive note with this whole thing, they at least do now have another shuttle or ship.
See, there's another example.
Yep. It's sticking out the hull, but, it's another one.
They said they're going to pull it out, but I think, they should have pushed it in and then taken all the parts.
Yeah, those guys in that cargo bay, where they keep on building and repairing shuttles.
Yeah, exactly. They can take the damaged one from, a couple weeks ago and use this. Well, now we go to Kazon number 1, whatever his name is.
Color.
And he's telling some other Kazon dudes about the transporter module they stole and about a plan to take more technology from Voyager.
Yeah.
This new Kazon that he's talking to is played by an actor named Terry Lester, who used to be Jack Abbott on The Young and the Restless when I was a kid. And his just absolutely unique way of talking cannot be hidden by the Kazon makeup. I recognized him right away.
Another great soap opera link.
I do have another link later to The Young and the Restless, which we're going to talk about. And by the way, the ridiculous Kazon hair is so on display. The guy who is like the assistant to Terry Lester's character looks like a Muppet.
Yes.
I don't know what is going on there.
Yeah, they've really gone all in on the hair. That's why Chakotay had to wear the burlap sack. They blew the costume budget on the Kazon hair.
Weird hair. Well, here's the deal. Kazon number 1 wants the Terry Lester Kazon to help take Voyager, like to help, attack and do a run on it and take the ship. And then he says they can split the spoils. Back on Voyager, B'Elanna has created a small coil scanner to track the module that was stolen. And Chakotay reminds her of something they did to a Cardassian frigate back in the good old days when Seska modified an anti-proton beam to penetrate the shields and the hull, but it only worked from an extremely close range. Which, by the way, they now have to ask themselves, wait a minute, was everything she did against the Cardassian, were those things just tricks?
Well, that's a really good point. They said they disabled a Cardassian ship. Was this prearranged?
Yeah.
That's a very valid concern. I'm surprised nobody brought it up.
B'Elanna notices Chakotay is taking this all pretty personally. She says he's not responsible for Seska, but he says he got her into the Maquis and accepted her into his confidence and then got intimately involved with her, so he feels pretty responsible. Yeah. B'Elanna says, so you have lousy taste in women, but she fooled all of us. And Chakotay says he's through being manipulated by her, but B'Elanna points out that it still seems to be working.
Yeah. And B'Elanna says she was her best friend.
Yeah.
I mean, Seska's very manipulative. It shows that she's really good at her craft.
It is a real bummer when you find out someone you think you are friends with is really sort of a sociopath.
Yeah.
And you didn't see it.
I did like this scene because I thought it was funny how the Klingon, who is all fire and fury, is lecturing Chakotay on letting his emotions get the better of him. I thought about this, and in some ways it would make a lot of sense because B'Elanna has struggled with that Klingon side of her, her Klingon nature, for all her life. So I expect she'd be a great person for seeing that happening in other people. Like, I see what he's doing. I know exactly how this is going. I
really think B'Elanna's character development is the most interesting so far. And selfishly, I look at it like the effects of leadership on someone, of good leadership. And I certainly don't mean Chakotay. I mean her interactions with Janeway. When somebody shows not only interest in you, but confidence in you and helps you develop into something, it really changes the paradigm for you as a person. If you're willing to let it, if you're willing to be open to that, you become extremely loyal to that person. You try to emulate them. And I have a note later about their relationship. And I just think maybe what you're talking about, maybe that's an example of that, where she's developing sort of through, just getting some strong leadership. I did also wonder maybe Tuvok had her on his podcast to discuss her emotions. Maybe he's influencing her too.
Well, yeah, in terms of emotions, I would see her as the complete counterpoint to Tuvok's control everything.
Yes. Back to the Kazon, and the Terry Lester Kazon says the Nistrim are weak and his people are strong.
They were the Relora.
Basically, he insults Kazon number 1 until he loses his temper. And Terry Lester says, just give us the tech and we'll take care of Voyager.
Yeah.
But Kazon number 1 says, I don't think so. And then everyone draws their guns and Seska convinces them not to kill each other, at least not yet.
Okay, first of all, this really made me laugh because I remember telling you the other day, this made me think of the original RoboCop, where Red insults the mobster he's dealing with. And basically everybody pulls out guns.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the actor's name. He actually appears later in Star Trek. But Red from the 70s show, like sits there and goes, ooh, guns, guns, guns. That totally popped into my mind.
Oh my gosh. It would have been funny if the little Muppet guy had said something like that. Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Guns, guns, guns. Actually, Red appears in probably one of my favorite Voyager episodes of all time.
Yes, of all time, not just Voyager. Yeah.
Yeah. Something else we learn here. The other Nistrim, the head of the Relora.
Terry Lester. I don't
think it was Terry Lester, first mage of the Relora.
Jack Abbott, if you prefer.
Okay. Well, he says to Cullen about how his grandfather's time has passed.
Oh, right.
And that the Nistrim is now weak. So basically, Cullen is a Kazon Nepo kid.
Oh, yeah. I guess that explains it.
Yeah. He's got to this position because his granda.
Sure. Back to Voyager, and we pick up some floating debris as we approach the location of the Kazon ship. But that's not debris. It's actually 2 dead Kazon floating in space. And it looks like Terry Lester and the Muppet did not win that argument.
Yeah, they didn't make it to the end of the episode.
No, they didn't even make it 15 minutes in.
Victor Newman finally got
Jack Abbott. Oh, that's a good reference. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
In sickbay, the doctor says it seems that these 2 Kazon were beamed into space while still alive. Janeway wonders if their early experiments with the transporters aren't working, but Neelix thinks this was probably an execution since these 2 Kazon sects are sworn enemies.
Yeah, Neelix came in very useful here. Being able to identify them, knowing what the badges and the color and the clothing meant.
Yeah, this is one of those times when Neelix is actually useful and he's not just standing in the scene.
Yeah. Right. Great power move by Seska there. Beam them into space. She was the one who told Cullen.
Oh, 100%.
I'll say this now, but Seska is very much showing her Cardassian side in this episode.
Yes, totally agree. The senior staff are meeting now to figure out how to get close enough to the Kazon ship to deploy the anti-proton beam. Everyone is there except Chakotay, and we pretty quickly realize Chakotay is not on the ship. He, of course, decided to take matters into his own hands and has taken off with the coil device in a shuttle.
Which means they've only got 47 shuttles left.
If they don't get this shuttle back, yes. But they get this one back, I think.
Yeah.
Janeway and Tuvok now are walking with purpose through the hallway. She wants to know how Chakotay got away in a shuttle. She says, Seska isn't the only one who knows how to compromise our security systems. Yeah, people.
Yeah.
Janeway is quite annoyed. When they get to engineering, B'Elanna says she knew Chakotay felt responsible for Seska, but she didn't expect him to do this. Janeway tells Paris to get on the move after Chakotay, and she tells Tuvok she wants a review of all on-ship security protocols by 2200 hours, and she stomps out.
Clearly nothing is working as of right now.
This is definitely going onto Tuvok's podcast because everyone is so emotional.
Oh, yeah. Now, I think it's time to talk about some of the filming techniques that they've been using in this episode. That whole scene with Tuvok through to engineering was one continuous shot. It was a really long, walk and talk, where they're going through the corridors and they're turning corners and they come into engineering and they walk all the way across engineering to get to B'Elanna. We've not seen that before.
I didn't notice it was one shot. I mean, you have to have the budget to have sets big enough to do that. We laugh about that a lot on Deep Space Nine, that nobody's running, but it's like there's nowhere to run is the problem. But we've seen the marching by Janeway, and if that's all in one big shot, that's interesting. We also talk at the beginning about a different angle they show on the bridge. Yeah, that we hadn't seen before.
I think we show it a couple of more times, but they were doing a shot from the back of the bridge forwards, and you actually see Tom Paris's console. And we see it from a couple of different angles. We see it, I think, from the left and the right. So they're throwing in a lot of different techniques in the filming of this episode. I say continuous shot. They might actually have cut it when they opened the doors to engineering. But they certainly gave the impression it was a long walking,
it felt continuous
single shot. Which, if it looks like it, that's almost as good as the real thing.
Yeah, the director of this episode is David Livingston. He's directed many episodes of other Star Trek, so it's not like this was his first time. But interesting.
It was great. They gave him some leeway to do a few different things. And for the regular viewer, I really noticed
it had a different feeling, for sure.
Yeah.
Back to the Kazon. Seska and Kazon number 1 are laughing about beaming the other Kazon into space. Seska says, "You really sent a message that the Kazon Nistrim are powerful." And Kazon number 1 says, "They started with a sect that was too strong, and they should have gone to some lesser groups first for help." And Seska agrees, and in fact, she already sent messages to the other sects. This annoys the Kazon leader because, as a woman, she should know her place. Great. And by the way, as far as I know, there have been no Kazon women at all. At least they haven't been characters who've spoken or done anything that we've noticed. So this was bound to be a problem.
The Kazon are like the Jem'Hadar. They just pull them out of vats.
Seska begs for forgiveness, and he eventually gets over it, or seems to. And then he starts talking about how he's going to have hundreds of ships and thousands of soldiers under his command. And Seska keeps saying, "Yes, Maj," until he kisses her hand. It's very weird.
She is very Cardassian. She is manipulating him, and he is as dumb as a brush.
Well, she's used to that, dealing with Cardassians.
Oh, that's a repeated complaint by the Obsidian Order. That's Garak's great line.
I just thought of this. I have a real rant kind of later in my notes about Chakotay and leadership, and about him sort of acting out of ego. And if we think about some of the problems with the Cardassian Gulls, at least, right, there were we talked about it a lot. It was just their ego, and they made decisions based on ego. And so, she probably learned to manipulate people like that in order to get where she needed to get. And she's doing that same exact thing to Chakotay, which is hilarious. He's like fallen into this trap of a Cardassian. Do you know what I mean? By acting like a Cardassian.
Chakotay or Cullen?
Chakotay. I'm saying she's been manipulating Chakotay, like she's manipulated Chakotay into what he's about to do by playing to his ego, bruising his ego, which is what she probably did all the time as a Cardassian to other Cardassians. And the same thing is working on him. Yes. What a mug.
Do you think that was her plan all along?
Yeah, now I do think so. Based on how this episode ends, I do think so, yes.
So, if she's a good Obsidian Order operative, she'd have layers on top of this. So I think you could be right. Layer 1 is we get Voyager. I get these idiot Kazon to get together and actually take Voyager. It's a win. Layer 2, we just get Chakotay. He's the backup plan. That I like that. That's some good headcanon there.
Thank you.
Maybe actually I'm wrong, and it's actually flipped. Plan 1, get Chakotay. Plan 2, these idiots actually manage to cooperate and take Voyager. I like it.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and I hadn't considered this before, but I'm thinking this is the tactic she's been using on Chakotay since the beginning, since she first met him.
Oh, all the way back to the Marquis.
Yes, she identified him as having a fragile ego.
Oh.
And she's still playing it.
Wow.
And he's too dumb to notice because his ego is so big.
Yeah, and it's still working. She's pretty good for an Obsidian Order operative. If they hadn't all been killed and Cardassia was a smoking ruin, she'd do pretty good.
We don't know that she's Obsidian Order, do we?
Oh, she's got to be Obsidian
guessing?
Order.
Okay.
Deep undercover like that.
Yeah, it seems fair. On Voyager now, B'Elanna comes to plead Chakotay's case to Janeway, who isn't sure she wants to hear it. B'Elanna says Chakotay respects the captain's authority, but he's a proud man, and he was embarrassed by Seska. Oh my God.
Oh, come on. There was a great line at the opening when she says, It's about Chakotay. And Janeway just says, that's not my favorite subject right now.
Yeah, mine either. Janeway says what Seska did, she did to all of us, and it's a little self-indulgent of Chakotay to assume this is all about him. I just love Janeway in this scene.
That ego thing?
Yeah. B'Elanna thinks he was in love with Seska, and then he found out that everything was a lie. And she says he's so private, and he was publicly humiliated by someone he loved. What a baby. Janeway is like, this sounds like a personal score, unbecoming of an officer. But B'Elanna says he's just taking responsibility for the situation. Eventually, Janeway agrees to take his personal situation into account, if and when they get him back. And she tells B'Elanna that he's lucky to have such a good friend. I feel bad for Janeway. Every time she gets really mad at someone, she realizes that she's forced to just get over it because she doesn't have any options.
That, I think, is a big part of the story of she's having to learn to be more flexible than she would have to be in a traditional Starfleet role.
And she's got nobody to bitch to. I mean, we talked about that a couple episodes ago. It's like she needs somebody to be able to complain to. She can't call any other captains and go, oh my God, my first officer is a nightmare.
And she can't go and play her holodeck game because it turned into a nightmare.
Oh, gosh. She really needs a sounding board. Chakotay in his shuttle is close to the Kazon ship, so he cuts all power to drift along quietly. Meanwhile, on the Kazon ship, they notice some intermittent EM readings, which does not fool Seska. She is super smart.
Yeah. Well, how many of these techniques did she teach Chakotay?
Chakotay's shuttle drifts right up next to the Kazon ship as he scans for the transporter module. And Seska laughs, realizing it's Chakotay, and she starts some pulses from the deflectors, making it possible to see the shuttle. Then she opens a channel to the shuttle and says, very clever, Chakotay, but I'm not going to let you ruin my hard work. Seska disables the shuttle just as Chakotay finds the transporter module. He's unable to activate the anti-proton generator, so he launches an automated message beacon, and he takes his internal dampers offline to make it look like he's lost control of the vessel. They lock a towing emitter onto the vessel and drag it into the main hangar, but when the Kazon enter the shuttle, Chakotay is not there. Chakotay is beamed onto the ship and finds his way to Seska and the transporter module, which he destroys with a phaser instantly.
Yep.
And then for some inexplicable reason, he gives his phaser to Seska.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
What was that about?
Was he trying to show off and go, haha, I've beaten you. I've defeated you.
I don't understand it. It doesn't, I don't understand it.
Yeah, and I also don't understand why Chakotay wouldn't rig the warp core on the shuttle to detonate the moment those Kazon opened the back hatch.
Which would have solved the whole problem.
Yeah. You get rid of Seska, the technology, the shuttle, and the Kazon.
Because he is not as noble as he's pretending to be. Everybody is acting like this is some big heroic thing he's trying to do. No, this is a joke.
Yeah.
If he really wanted to end it, that's exactly what he would have done. He had the opportunity to do it, and he didn't do it. Instead, he beams on there. He hands over his phaser because he doesn't want to get into a firefight because he might get hurt. I think he's a giant baby. This is no hero.
There's two sides to this as well. You blow up the emitter.
And Seska.
And Seska is the only person who really understands that technology. You take her out too.
Yes, but he didn't do anything. Useless.
If it was Worf or Brad Dourif, the entire Kazon ship would be full of bodies after just a few minutes.
Who's Brad Dourif?
He appears later in the show. I think next season.
Yeah, Worf would have taken care of this.
And it would have been a nice surprise for the Kazon opening the hatch.
Yeah, it would have been a Kazon move, too. Back on Voyager, they find Chakotay's message beacon with Chakotay's automated message, and it says, if this signal has been activated, it means I've destroyed the transporter module. And then he apologizes to the captain for acting without authorization, and he says, don't put the crew in further jeopardy, as it's unlikely I'm still alive. Janeway's like, great. Meanwhile, the Kazon are beating up Chakotay. Seska in this scene is wearing a very bizarre outfit. It's like they didn't quite know what to do with her. They wanted to give her a Kazon-like looking outfit. It's very strange. It has fuzzy sleeves, but sort of a denim vest. Anyway, the outfits in this episode are wild.
Agreed.
Seska sends the Kazon thugs away and tells Chakotay that Kazon number 1 wanted to execute him, but she convinced him that Chakotay would be useful. Then she starts needling him. She thought answering to Janeway after all of these months would have made him soft. But a little slap in the face got Chakotay's Maquis heart beating again. Oi.
I love the line when she says, I'm not a monster. I care about Torres. And some of the others.
Yeah.
That made me laugh. I'm like, yes, the other guy. Remember the guy who got us coffee that one time? He's kind of cool.
Chakotay says this game is over. He destroyed the transporter module, but she says she doesn't need that module since she has his shuttle. But he says he wiped the computer core before transporting over. Although that doesn't work, because if you wiped it, then how did you transport? It would have had to be the other way around.
Well, maybe set it on a timer. But at the same time, wouldn't a lot of the technologies that are on the shuttle, the actual hardware, still be available?
Yeah, the stuff is still there, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, he says, if you're going to kill me, just do it now. And she mocks him and says she doesn't have the transporter anymore, but she has him. And then she gets annoyed when he says he's not interested in her. It's the whole scene is a bit awkward. She says she was never interested in him, only the information he could provide. She says, first you gave me your Maquis secrets, and now I want Voyager's command codes. Which is so dumb, because when an officer is kidnapped, change the command codes. What are you doing?
Yeah, shouldn't that be the, first thing you do?
Yeah, 100%. And when he left in the shuttle, unauthorized, you immediately change them.
Yeah. It falls under the thing of when a DBA leaves your company, or the senior network administrator, you don't keep all the passwords the same.
She tells him that other Kazon are on the way, and they're going to take Voyager together. She pretends to be worried about the people on Voyager getting hurt, but that angle doesn't work with Chakotay. So she says her Kazon boyfriend will get the codes out of him. Back to Voyager, Tuvok has found his opportunity to get rid of Chakotay. He's like, the message is authentic, and he expressly said we shouldn't come after him.
And everyone else on the bridge says, it works for me.
B'Elanna, of course, disagrees, though Tuvok wisely says, the more we engage with the Kazon, the more possibilities for them to get more of our technology. Harry calls to say several Kazon ships are closing in. Janeway tells B'Elanna her gut says we should go after Chakotay, but her better judgment says we should honor his request. B'Elanna says, I don't want you to ignore your judgment, but the loss of our first officer will affect the crew and the morale. Positively, I would argue. Maybe this is an instance when your gut is giving the better advice.
I think the problem here is a lot of the Maquis probably still look up to Chakotay. And from their perspective, him doing this mission out on his own maybe is actually the kind of thing that they admire. Oh, look at Chakotay. He's still got that fighting spirit.
And this is literally the problem with what he did.
Yeah. And, B'Elanna's kind of right there.
B'Elanna is right that this could affect morale, but this is Chakotay's fault.
Oh, agreed.
That they would still look up to him in that way because he's a crap leader. We're going to talk about that.
Can't wait to get to leadership in the future.
I am so mad at Chakotay. He's terrible. Janeway eventually agrees with B'Elanna, and unfortunately, we're going after him. This is where I took the note that we talked about earlier, where I tend to think B'Elanna is the most loyal person on Voyager. And I don't mean to Chakotay, I mean to Janeway, because she actually trusted she could go in and speak her mind and that Janeway would listen to her. And Janeway does listen to her. And I just really appreciate the way they've grown that relationship.
Yeah. Staying with that topic, if we look at the other crew, I think Tom would be very loyal because Janeway gave him the chance. Harry is...
He's just loyal.
Harry, I would say, is different because he's just loyal to Starfleet.
Agreed.
He's an absolute true believer.
Yep.
I don't know if I describe him as having loyalty to Janeway or to the captain and what she represents.
I completely agree. And I think, yes, Harry is loyal to the role of captain, would be loyal to anybody who is captain. But Janeway has gone out of her way to build some bridges with him. I mean, if we think way back to that episode where he died and then they brought him back, remember she sat with him and talked to him about that. And that's not necessarily something that maybe a Picard would do or a cold leader might do.
Yeah.
So I think she has built some bridges with him. But no, I agree. His loyalty is to the role of captain at this point, whereas Tom and B'Elanna are loyal to Janeway.
And I would think Tuvok would look at himself as loyal to his oath to Starfleet. And that means of being loyal to the captain who's in charge. I think he likes Janeway in whatever way the Vulcans would say that.
Yeah.
But there's a sense of duty. We saw that in the episode where he tried to get the transjector technology. He sees a duty to the crew and doing things that the captain couldn't. A personal attachment to a captain is inefficient.
Right. The Kazon continue to beat on Chakotay, but he's not telling them anything. Instead, he starts poking at the Kazon guy about how Seska used to be his girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
They shoot something into Chakotay's neck, which they never explain. It seems to maybe be some kind of truth serum, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Chakotay just laughs and says when Seska is through with you, she's going to kill you.
Oh, that was great. I loved that.
Seska says to give him some time. She says he'll eventually cooperate. The Kazon leave, leaving Seska alone with Chakotay, and she shoots something else into his neck, which is really gross if you watch it. But I don't know, again, what that was about. They don't explain it.
Oh, I think that's explained at the end with she took his DNA.
Oh, that's what that was.
Yes.
I thought she was like torturing him or something. No, she said she did it when he was unconscious. Maybe he was a little dopey because he was drugged by the first shot. Yeah, okay. Okay,
that's what I was thinking. That was in my second watching. That's what conclusion I came to.
That's not how babies work, but okay, we'll talk about that later.
Well, she's a Cardassian. They probably do something different.
Voyager approaches the Kazon ship and identifies 6 other ships in the vicinity. Janeway asks Neelix what that's all about, but Neelix says alliances across sex do not happen.
Again, Neelix being useful.
Janeway wants to figure out a way to get Chakotay out without picking a fight. B'Elanna suggests beaming him out at warp speed. She says she's done it before, but Harry and Tuvok are dubious.
Yes. I kind of like that as well because she's relying on that Marquis side, that, devil may care attitude of the needs must sort of thing. And Harry and Tuvok, the sort of, like you say, the reaction is like,
yeah, we don't do that.
That's really not a good idea.
Yeah. The leaders of the new Kazon sects are now all meeting, though this is a very shaky alliance. Kazon number 1 says if we join together and we have Voyager's technology, we'll become the most powerful of the Kazon. The other Kazon want proof that he has the command code, so he brings in Chakotay and throws him on the floor, which seems to impress the others.
I assume that was a complete lie. He hadn't got
It was
the
a
code.
lie, yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Voyager's trying to do their flyby. Tuvok is sure to point out that Chakotay may be dead. That really also made me laugh out loud.
On a positive note.
Yeah. There were some times I really laughed in this episode.
Yeah.
It seems that Seska has a dampening field to hide Chakotay, so B'Elanna has to make some adjustments and eventually finds him. They go to red alert and have to drop out of warp, which, by the way, I think would raise the shields if you go to red alert.
It's optional.
The Kazon visitors want to see Kazon number 1 perform a demonstration, but instead they see Chakotay beamed away. But that Seska's tricky. She immediately beams him right back. Kazon number 1 says, it's just taking longer than expected to take over Voyager.
Oh, yeah. Trust me, guys. Everything's under control.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Or that woman, in this case, behind the curtain.
We get some more shots as well from the back of the bridge, showing Tom at the helm again.
That's true. A bit of a firefight ensues now while B'Elanna keeps trying to get Chakotay. Seska runs to the bridge to continue her work on trying to break into Voyager.
Yep.
It seems that Seska has put some randomly fluctuating modulation on the dampening field around Chakotay, and B'Elanna can't get him. Tuvok says we must retreat. The shields are down to, I think he says 16%.
Yeah, they're getting pretty low.
But Janeway says she has an idea.
When Seska leaves to go to the bridge, Culler tries to follow her. And
Yeah.
the other Kazon are like, oh no, you're staying right here.
I think you should stay right here.
The Nepo kid's making a run for it.
They should have kept Seska, too.
Normally I ask my dad to fix things.
Meanwhile, back on the Kazon ship, the Kazon are all bickering. They realize Kazon number 1 doesn't really have the command code, so they decide to take his ship and defeat Voyager themselves.
Yep.
But they're all suddenly caught in a transporter beam and end up on Voyager, where Tuvok tells them their weapons are all disabled, and he says they must return Chakotay and their shuttlecraft, and in exchange, they will be released.
Very well done. This time doing it with the weapons disabled.
Yes, good idea for a change.
Fortunately, they didn't have any stabby weapons or anything like that.
Yeah. Everyone is back where they're supposed to be, well, except Seska, although I guess I don't know where exactly she's supposed to be, but she's still with the Kazon. Janeway asks Chakotay what he was thinking, and he says he was only thinking about keeping the technology out of their hands. That's a lie. He says he thought if he did it on his own, he could have kept the crew out of danger. It's so dumb. You're just thinking about yourself. Such a baby.
It was a personal score to settle.
Clearly.
Just admit it.
Just
and go on
admit
with
it.
Yeah.
He says he thought he was doing the right thing. This is what I don't like about him, right? He's like trying to pretend he's so noble. And it's like, no, just say, I screwed up. I shouldn't have done that. I got mad.
That's what Tuvok did.
Yeah. Ugh. Janeway is good at I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Like what Picard used to do.
Terrible.
So painful.
Yeah. Yes. Oh.
She says, how do you expect me to keep order when the first officer runs off like some cowboy? You set a terrible example for the crew, and you've made my job more difficult. Because he sucks. He says he regrets it, but she says she's putting him on report, if that means anything. And Chakotay says it means something to him, and he's truly sorry. Tuvok calls to say you better get to the bridge. And on the bridge, they found an automated message beacon from Seska this time to Chakotay.
Yeah, at what point is Janeway just going to go, another one, just ignore them.
Just blow it up.
Yeah.
Why listen to it?
Yeah, don't bother.
Janeway asks if he wants privacy, but he says he spent enough time alone with her. Oy, but he may regret this because Seska appears on screen, congratulating Chakotay on his victory, and then she drops the bomb. While you were unconscious, I took the liberty of extracting your DNA, and I've impregnated myself with it. So congratulations, you're going to be a father.
Oh, dear.
That is creepy. And also, that's not how it works. But anyway, I guess we didn't want to say she gathered a sperm sample while he was sleeping. Oh, I laughed out loud again when she said that. That was very funny. The end. Oi, oi, oi. This episode is wild. You know, Star Trek Voyager is crazy.
Yeah, this episode really was pretty wild.
It was. Do you have over-analysis?
Yes. The first thing is, and it's kind of leaning on what we talked about of their tactics when they're in a fight, which seem to be fly straight. Have they considered ramming as an option?
Well, they shouldn't consider that because they have to repair themselves, right? There are no star bases, and I think ramming would be a pretty much last resort for them. I mean, literally last resort. No one's coming to save them.
Yeah, I can think of, there is actually a situation when that happens, and yeah, it doesn't end well for anyone.
No, but your point from earlier was valid. They didn't handle that attack very well. And they have to be prepared for this stuff. You know, Seska is out there with the Kazon, not just Seska, but also they are on their own. And there's a lot of hostile aliens that they run into, but they just seem surprised every time somebody shoots at them.
We thought the Gamma Quadrant was the quadrant of jerks. This is the quadrant of the jerks plus.
Yeah, this is more like the quadrant of pirates.
Oh.
It's the constant attacks.
You know, I kind of have a theory here. We look at the Delta Quadrant and there doesn't seem to be any kind of alliance like the Federation or any real positive organization or groups of people.
Not yet,
there seems to be a lot of people in it for themselves. Is this because of the Borg, who we know are in the Delta Quadrant?
Yeah, maybe.
Planets that get technologically advanced, that get big enough, the Borg just assimilate them. Or the Borg have destroyed these alliances.
So everybody just keeps to themselves at this point?
So
and it's set back the development, really, of the whole quadrant.
Exactly.
Because
one of the things is the Borg want races that have technology they can use or exploit. So like you said, this is why the Delta Quadrant is the way it is, because the Borg have damaged its natural evolution.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good call.
In the same way as in the Gamma Quadrant, it's the Founders and the Dominion have negatively impacted everything.
Yeah.
Next thing. It makes it sound like the Kazon really don't have many ships between the sects.
Yeah.
Because when there's the comment about them only having less than 6 ships, and the Nistram not having that many. So are the Kazon just like 2 or 3 ships? Are they just like pirates? Or they might have, 3 ships and a really big pirate has 4 ships under their control.
I mean, it absolutely seems like that, yes.
Yeah. Which I guess would make sense, because if one Kazon ship can have a reasonably good fight with Voyager, then if you got like a dozen of those ships, Voyager's screwed.
Yes.
This also does come under the whole thing of like Neelix saying the Kazon don't cooperate.
They just don't work together.
Yeah. And there are Kazon alliances, if they have alliances, shift all the time. That was what we learned in the episode with Nog, the Kazon episode.
Right.
I think he talked about that. So yeah, I guess they don't have enough firepower to take Voyager on directly. And it kind of shows their weakness, really.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I mean, the Kazon seem like the ultimate ego-driven Cardassians. And I guess that's why Seska works so well. Like you say, she's dealing with gulls.
Yeah, they just don't have the same level of technology as the Cardassians.
Yeah.
And it's probably because they don't have any women.
Well, I think it's also because they are cavemen with VCRs.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily understand this technology. They just use it.
All their clocks are flashing 12.
Exactly. That would be a good example of it.
That is a true Gen X reference.
Next thing. So, do you think Seska has an implant like Garrick? Remember from...
No, because Remember, Garak did that to himself. The Obsidian Order didn't make him do that.
They didn't?
Mm-mm.
I thought that
No.
was...
That's the thing that what's-his-name says. The guy with the grandpa sweater.
Yeah.
And Auburn Tain.
Uh-huh.
I think he tells Bashir that Garak did that to himself.
Oh.
To like prove his loyalty or something,
Yeah.
or prove something. Yeah, I don't think that was standard procedure. That's at least my memory of
I
it.
might have to go back and look at that now. Because I'm thinking Seska's spending all this time with lower species, as the Cardassians see them. It must be driving her nuts.
Well, she probably feels really smart around them.
Oh, that would appeal to a Cardassian, yeah.
Yes, but there's a lot of danger in that barbarism.
Yeah. And I think my final point, staying with Seska. So, do you think she's a similar level to Garak?
I'm going to say yes. I think they are pretty similar.
Yeah. She seems incredibly resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
She's worked in 2 deep cover environments with the Maquis and then with the Federation, with basically out being discovered until she made a mistake, trying to build an alliance with the Kazon. And she's pretty good.
Yeah.
But she definitely does not have the sense of humor of Garak.
No.
Although I'll pretty much guarantee that Cullen is going to have some kind of accident in the next few days that had nothing to do with Seska.
Probably, yeah. Although she can't run that ship. If she feels like she can manipulate him, I don't know that that's going to happen.
He's probably going to end up with a neural control implant, is my guess.
Do you have any other overanalysis?
And I think my final overanalysis is, I think they need to start revising all their procedures.
Yeah.
I think, they talk about following the book and doing things a particular way. I think knowing that you have a motivated enemy who knows all your internal stuff, I think you need to start revising your security protocols, your operational procedures, all these things. I mean, even doing it subtly would throw things off enough that she wouldn't be able to rely on, oh, they'll do exactly this.
Yeah, I totally agree. They have to be sitting down and talking about unconventional methods.
Yes.
Shaking things up until they have captured Seska or she's dead or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, because they have to expect this to be a constant thing now.
Right. And changing your command codes if anybody's kidnapped.
Although I'm not sure why the Kazon can keep up with them.
That's a good point. If the Kazon can't go that fast, how come the Nistrum have made it all the way ahead?
I guess because we keep stopping and going back and going to Murder Planet and...
Oh, that's true. They do keep on making mistakes of like, oh, we'll go here and it'll help us. Oh, no, doesn't work out. But it does raise the question of how the Kazon would get far enough ahead of Voyager to build a probe, put it in that plasma the purple cloud, or pink, was it pink or purple?
It was purple.
Modify a ship to penetrate the hull, you put this whole plan together and wait for Voyager to get there.
They probably did it all during that one episode where we were chasing down Chakotay's ancestors.
Oh, right.
Chakotay is the problem.
Yeah. How many problems is Chakotay causing? Tuvok holds a meeting with Janeway saying he's identified the leading cause of problems on the ship, and it is Chakotay.
Yes.
And I think that, with that final piece of Chakotay bashing, that wraps up my overanalysis. Over to you.
Okay, I have 3 points.
Oh, okay.
Point number 1.
Yes.
It does seem like the Kazon were a bit more menacing in this episode than they've been before.
I would agree.
But that might all be down to Seska, who's very menacing.
I think Seska was doing the menacing. They were just the secondary henchmen.
Yeah. Number 2, did they make a mistake at the end when they had all the Kazon leaders and they just sent them back? Should they have dumped them all into space and destroyed the Kazon ships?
Well, one of my notes actually says, kill them all, photon torpedoes on all the Kazon ships. Send a message. Mess with Voyager, we kill all of you. And it's a terrible thing to say, but the Kazon understand power.
Yeah, and this is never going to end, especially with Seska.
Yeah, because the Kazon will look at it as, they're weak, they let us go. And if you destroyed all 6 of those ships, killed all those leaders, the other Kazon would probably get the idea that Voyager is strong, don't mess with them. But it's so un-Starfleet, though. That's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to do it. Well, especially with the speech about altering the balance of power, which that would do.
Yes.
But this is never going to end. At the very least, you have to go out of your way to get Seska out of there.
Yeah.
You got to do something.
Oh, yeah. The problem with Seska is, with her engineering knowledge, even if she hasn't got the Federation tech, she could enhance their technology. Or she could aid the Kazon in stealing technology from other races.
Yes. She on her own is a problem. Yeah. Okay. Now, remember a couple episodes ago where I compared Neelix to Captain America, and I said, no other podcast is doing that. I'm going to tell a story from The Young and the Restless that no other Star Trek podcast is going to tell you.
That's kind of wild.
So this thing at the end with the pregnancy is such a soap opera move. It reminds me of this thing. I totally laughed out loud when she said it because it reminds me of this thing that happened on The Young and the Restless, which also Terry Lester's in this episode. So I'm going to connect it this way. There. A woman stole a sperm sample from, I don't know, a sperm bank or something that she thought was one of the characters, Victor Newman. She thought it was Victor Newman's sample. And she stored it in some kind of a freezer-like thing in her closet. I don't remember that detail. It was a long, long time ago. But another character ended up stealing it from her and using it herself. And she ended up with a different one, which she thought was the original one, but wasn't. And it ended up being Jack Abbott's baby instead of Victor's baby. I mean, a wild soap opera story, which if you can't handle stuff like that, soap operas were never for you. I always found that freaking hilarious. And I completely, this like reminded me of that. Oh, I took your sample and I stored it in a closet until I needed it.
Yes,
but anyway.
That I can see why this wild ending would trigger that memory.
Maybe the craziest thing that happened that I ever saw on a soap opera. It was so funny. And you got to be in it for the lols or there's just no other reason.
Yeah.
Well, those are my 3 analysis points. So I'm going to jump to women in the future. I don't have much to say here. I have more to say in the leadership corner.
Yeah.
But there are no women in the Kazon. This is maybe why, one of the reasons why I just don't like them. And I certainly didn't enjoy the control your woman line. I think that came out of Terry Lester's mouth. But whatever, the Kazon suck. I don't want to watch the Kazon. I don't like them. They're a terrible villain. But I will say in this episode, at the very least, they were villains, which in the past they've almost been comical.
Yeah. They were a little bit more like aggressive pirates in this one.
Yes. So let me go to Leadership Corner where I need to rant about Chakotay.
Oh, I've been waiting for this.
Look, he's the worst leader we've seen as a first officer of the major characters. Yeah. I mean, just the worst. He's so focused on himself and his ego is so easily bruised that he goes on a personal vendetta.
Yep.
He knows damn well that Janeway is coming after him regardless of that message because that's what Starfleet does. We've done it multiple times already in the first 26, 27 episodes where we have, maybe it wasn't the safest thing or the smartest thing, but we've gone back to save our person. So he knew she was going to do everything to come and get him.
Yeah. Don't come and get me, but I know you will.
I think there's 2 parts to the Chakotay problem here. The first is he's now demonstrated that he doesn't have to follow Janeway's orders or really any rules. So he puts doubts into the minds of others of whether or not they need to follow Janeway's orders or Voyager's rules.
Especially if the Maquis look up to him.
Exactly, because maybe there are people in the Maquis who still doubt that Janeway is in charge and they're just like waiting for their chance. Well, guess what? Now you've demonstrated she isn't in charge. So he has undermined Janeway and probably undermined all of the other leaders on the ship with this selfish act. It was so selfish and so dumb. Yeah. I kick him out of that chair immediately. But there's no consequences. Janeway has a problem that she feels like she can't do anything to him or to any of the Maquis because there's still this balancing act that she has to go through.
Right.
And on top of that, she doesn't have any options. She can't get rid of anyone and replace them.
She needs them.
And he knows all of this. He knows she has no options, and yet he still undermined her. I would never rely on him again.
And he kind of exploited that.
He 100% exploited it. So she can't trust him. I had a manager one time. I mean, it's obviously not the same type of thing that went on here, but he did something bordering on unethical within the organization.
Yeah.
And it didn't really hurt anyone and, it didn't really hurt the company, but he thought it was quote unquote funny. And it went against the core value of the organization. And my response was to remove him from management. You can't be a leader in my organization and show that kind of leadership. You just can't. And so Janeway has to do something about it, right? But she can't. And he knew that. It's just awful. So the second part of this problem is a basic leadership mistake that a lot of new managers or wannabe managers make.
Yeah.
You make it all about yourself and your own story and your own success, or in this case, your own ego. And that's not what management is about. It's about the success of the team. So if you make it about yourself, you're a crappy manager. If you think that's what management is about how you can succeed and how you can get ahead, I guarantee you're a crappy manager. And Chakotay is a crappy manager who made it about himself. He set a terrible example for the crew while also undermining his own leader, so affecting all kinds of people, everybody. He's an absolute joke. Wood fire.
Janeway should promote him to something out of the way. She should put him in charge of the guys who are repairing all those shuttles that they keep on breaking.
Maybe you leave him as first officer in name only, but you don't trust him anymore.
Yeah.
So you don't rely on him. You don't put him in charge of anything. It's like, oh, you've got the title, but you're not really the first officer.
You're not really running the crew.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, he puts Janeway in an impossible position here.
Mm-hmm.
And it really does demonstrate that when he wants to do what he wants, he can do what he wants.
Yeah. I've been saying this since the beginning. Maybe she should make a trade, swap Chakotay for Seska. She's clearly cleverer than he is.
Seska, we know you want to get home. You'll do anything to do it.
Yep.
Here's the job opportunity.
Make it happen. This makes me so mad. He's such... Ugh.
Yeah, you have never liked that character, even from back in the day when we were first watching this.
No.
You were like, "Oh, Chakotay episode,
wood fire, awful, awful, awful." All right, let's go to rating. I think I've made my point. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
Well, apart from a very clunky opening with the hole in the shields and getting the ship in, I think they could have handled that better. I did enjoy the episode. It is a thumbs up. I think it has good rewatchability. The visual style of it is they're trying some different things. The different angles, the great walking scene. I think visually it was a good episode. I like the idea of the plot. Seska is a wonderful villain. She encompasses just the confidence and the ability to achieve. And it's almost like it's the other people around her who let her down. But also, being Cardassian, she doesn't necessarily think of the big picture. Like she puts a dampening field around Chakotay. You can't get him. But doesn't look at the step beyond. So I liked how, in some ways, I felt she was consistent with what the Cardassians are like.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things in this episode I very much enjoyed, which totally makes me forgive some of the clunkiness at the beginning. So thumbs up, would watch again, highly recommend.
Yeah, I give it a thumbs up. I mean, it's silly in many parts. The pregnancy thing at the end, absolutely ridiculous, silly.
Total soap opera.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that I can't stand Chakotay doesn't make it a bad episode. It's a good episode. I just think he's a terrible leader, and I don't like him.
And he was not acting nobly.
He was not acting nobly, no. And they did manage to raise the stakes a bit with the Kazon, so they're not such silly enemies. So I think it advanced some things. I thought Janeway was really good in this episode. There was a scene where we were laughing where they were under attack and she does a really funny thing where she falls forward as if the ship has been hit, and then she's got this great look on her face, and we were just laughing about that.
Oh yeah, she sold that.
Yeah. You've often criticized things on Star Trek by saying it's like a soap opera, and I've watched a lot of soap operas, and I usually disagree with you when you say that, like when you'll say a relationship is like a soap opera.
A bad soap opera is usually my prefix for that.
Well, this pregnancy thing is such a soap opera move. It's dopey. It's incongruous with the rest of Star Trek, but it was very funny. There were at least 3 times in this episode where I just laughed out loud. That was one of them. And the other one was when Tuvok really needled Chakotay about, well, gee, maybe you could use your personal relationship with her.
Oh, that was so good.
That was very funny. And then there was that other scene when Janeway says, I want a security review at 2200 hours, and Tuvok's eyebrows kind of go up, and his reaction to that is very funny.
Oh, that is an emotional response.
All right, well, thumbs up, but I'm still mad about Chakotay.
Yeah, his performance review will not be positive.
No, not favorable. That wraps up Season 2, Episode 11. Come back next time for Episode 12. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own overanalysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at rebingeit@gmail.com. You can also hit us up on the socials, the thing that used to be called Twitter, Instagram, Threads, YouTube. We're all at ReBingeIt. Or you can join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.